Good evening, Somers, and welcome to our combination work session and regular meeting of Thursday, March 7th, 2019. If you'd please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We got scouts in the room.
It's good. Do we have any Boy Scouts?
We do.
All Boy Scouts, if you please come to the front of the room. Or Scouts of all ages. In the front of the room. Could you state your names? Excellent. Gentlemen, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, boys.
Thank you, Scouts, and be seated. Roll call. Patty, roll call.
Councilman William G. Faulkner.
Here.
Councilman Richard G. Clinch.
Here.
Councilman Anthony J. Sirico.
Here.
Councilman Thomas A. Garrity Jr. Supervisor Rick Morrissey.
Present. All right, our first order of business this evening is a public hearing. We have two public hearings this evening. The first one is on a proposed local law to consider the adoption of a Chapter 120 of the Code of the Town of Somers entitled Marijuana Sales Prohibited. So I'm going to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
Publishing.
Publishing and posting, please.
That was published in the Somers Record on February 22nd and posted on the town clerk's bulletin board the same day.
Thank you. Okay, any opening statements any of the board wants to make?
No, I'm anxious to hear what the public has to think because I already know what I think on the matter.
Okay. We did have a sign-in sheet for people who wanted to speak. Who's first on the list?
Oh, wow.
Who do you have that time?
Kathy Cucciarella. Call her.
Yeah.
Kathy. Kathy is the chairwoman of Partners in Prevention.
Thank you. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kathy Cucciarella, and I'm the chairperson for the Somers Partners in Prevention, and I'm also the coordinator for the Drug-Free Communities Grant, which Somers was awarded just this past October.
Kathy, could you just give us your address for the record?
Is that?
Yes, so it's 12 Granite Springs Road in Granite Springs, New York.
Thank you.
Is that mic on there? Yeah.
So currently, right now, the hot issue that's out there right now is whether or not, with the Governor Cuomo's proposed budget, whether or not to legalize marijuana within the state of New York. I guess our ask is to please say, stop, slow down, and let's learn from other states that have already legalized marijuana until it can be further analyzed. And we're talking about recreational marijuana. I think that's a point to be made clear. There are many organizations within New York State already to date who have taken a stand opposing the legalization. Just recently, Westchester County Police Commissioners took a stand, the County Health Commissioners have taken a stand, New York State PTA has taken a stand. So, in summary, you have law enforcement, educators, health professionals that are relying on science and looking at the laws and seeing how this may potentially impact us. At this point, all studies have shown so far that recreational marijuana has been has had a negative impact on these states that have approved the legalization. So we, in our town of Somers, should consider seriously looking at and saying no, and asking our officials to say, slow down, please further analyze the approval of recreational marijuana.
Okay.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Russ Kammer.
Thank you. want to thank the town board for taking up this matter. I think it's very critical and very forward-thinking of you all. I want to second everything that Kathy said.
Excuse me, can I just give your name
Russ-
and your
okay,
address? Thank you.
yes. Russell Kamer, 16 Sunderland Lane.
Thank you.
I'd like to second everything Kathy said. I'd also like to add one group she didn't mention, that we were in Albany yesterday, the Medical Society of the State of New York. The doctors were there to absolutely positively oppose recreational marijuana in the state of New York due to the deleterious effects on health. And again, I think it's great the town board wants to ban sales. I think it's also important to ban production, growth of marijuana in the town. I say that because I have friends and colleagues in Pueblo, Colorado. You may have heard it used to be a nice place, and then they called it the Napa Valley of cannabis. What's happened now, I've seen pictures from my colleagues of farms that are taken over by drug cartels because the marijuana that's grown legally is diverted to illegal sales. I have pictures of houses erupting in flames in Pueblo, Colorado, next to law-abiding citizens from the production of butane hash oil. Because it's not enough that the marijuana today is nothing like the Woodstock weed of maybe 5% THC, and it's not enough that today's marijuana is up to 15% and higher. They distill it into THC concentrates. So we're really not talking about smoking a joint anymore. We're talking about high concentrated THC, which is a narcotic. I'd like to say, we don't feel that anyone should go to jail for smoking a joint, but it's no great honor either. Okay? The other thing I'd like to mention in regards to the laws is New York State would actually not allow Somers to ban sales. I think this is has to be addressed with the state legislators who want to ban municipalities of fewer than 100,000 residents, as you well know. This law in New York State was written by the pot industry, and that's an example. They don't want to do anything that would limit their possible clientele. This is like big tobacco, big opium, and again, I want to thank the board for taking up this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Bloom.
Gotten shorter. Good evening. My name's Michael Bloom. I live at 7 Todd Lane in Somers. I recently sold my home, so I won't be here much longer. Probably around April, we'll be leaving. So I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about not just marijuana, but I believe the opioid crisis as well. I think they're linked. So, I've heard a lot of statistics mentioned, and I, by the way, just came back from California where it is legal, recreational is legal, as well as in 10 other states, I believe. So thank you for allowing me to comment. I'll be addressing, as I said, the resolution and the current opioid crisis together. First of all, you had already put the resolution together. My understanding is today it's feedback regarding the resolution, right? You've already
This is a
written it.
public hearing,
It's a public hearing, and you're getting input from
marijuana
us.
legislation.
Right, and specifically about not being able to sell it in Somers.
Correct.
And my first question to all of you really is, are there any doctors here? Are any of you doctors? Are any of you pharmacologists?
Excuse me, this is a public hearing, so
I
it's
know.
not a question and answer.
Well,
We
you don't have
want
to
to
answer
hear
it.
from the public.
It's a rhetorical one. Okay.
Well, there are, not on this board.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I was watching the meeting because I wasn't here, and you had mentioned certain statistics, sources, things like gateway drug, things like that. I just want to know what sources you used to come up with that information. So I think it's important that all of us understand where you're coming from.
Is that rhetorical as well, or you want?
It's rhetorical, but I think it'd be nice to see.
If you go on the website, there's a SAM report, which was provided by the Partners of Prevention. And it's 2 flyers and a 15-page report, which I did not state statistics. I read a memo from Partners in Prevention, which outlined those things. So they're all on the website for public consumption.
And all footnotes in terms of,
Okay, thank you. You also made mention regarding revenue, that this was generating tax revenue for the state. And I think there was a mention of, sorry. And I think you also mentioned that the real cost is 4-folds of the actual revenue that is going to be coming through. And so you all made mention of the fact that, you know, if this is about revenue, that's wrong too. If this is about tax revenue, that's wrong too. Let me suggest this is about cost reduction. Because all these years, we've been paying for the illegal. So think cells, think prisoners, think judges, think courts, think of all of the cost related to it not being legalized. It's huge. Now that a lot of that cost will actually go away since it is legal. And in particular, the amounts, that kids were put in jail for misdemeanors that now are okay. You know, what I'm saying is that for many, many years, our taxes were going to basically pay for the illegalization of marijuana. So I don't believe that it's for making money, all right? I believe that it's predominantly for cost reduction. The revenues that they're getting are predominantly going to be used for managing it, for managing what is going on, for regulating it, for going to the stores and doing inspections and doing reviews. You can't sell it to people that are 21 or under 21. So that's going to take money. Another statement was that this is a gateway drug. That in this environment, there's a child dying almost every day in this country from an overdose of heroin, that legalizing recreational marijuana can only add to the death toll. Additionally, we've already been dealing with fentanyl a while now, and that is 50% more addictive than the current opioids that we're dealing with as well. So over the last 3 years, we have seen deaths in Somers and surrounding towns. One such person was Eric Christensen. Now, I know Lou, I knew Eric very well. I know Carol and Karina. We all grew up on Sun Hill Road. My son grew up with it. When Eric died of an overdose of heroin in some forsaken street in Yonkers, he was a detective in the New York Police Force. And he, in fact, accomplished the dreams of his father. His father always wanted to see somebody become a detective. And Eric, I think overall, and I honestly believe this, was a good kid and showed many that he could straighten out and become a detective. Since there was no direct correlation, Lou came to me one day and he brought the vial that was last prescribed to Eric. That vial held 200 pills. It was prescribed from a doctor here in Somers. But there was no correlation. I'm sorry. The vial was prescribed, the prescription was prescribed from a doctor here in Somers. When Lou tried to somehow connect all the things together, there was a problem. We did not have any monitoring system in the pharmacies. You could not make a direct correlation between 200 pills of the opioid with the heroin that he went to and eventually died from. So basically, it went away. Was that upsetting? Of course it was upsetting. I don't think Lou ever became the same man he was before. when he lost his son. Carol has been very active in the prevention and very active in the other organization, and I admire her. But I also promised Lou that if there's anything I could do over time to put a program together that finally will deal in this town with the opioid epidemic, a collective program. My research came up with such a program that is now being done in multiple towns. So, contrary, I think, to the concept of it being a gateway, what the tests have been proving is that if you have an addictive personality, any drug you use will become a gateway drug. Chocolate can become a gateway drug if you're addicted to it. So it's not fair to say marijuana will be a gateway. The states that legalized marijuana saw the following. They saw a decrease in vehicular deaths due to opioids. And you ask yourself the question, well, why? How did that happen? They legalized it. They took a look at all the vehicular deaths that people died from taking opioids. They were high, they were whatever. And they saw a decrease of those deaths from the opioids. The reason probably is because people were substituting that for pain, substituting that for marijuana. And my issue really is going to be about that. There are people that are dependent on marijuana for pain. There are people that feel that that's the only solution they've had. There are people dying of cancer that are using these to basically deal with it. To prevent them from getting it, I think it's a problem, okay? But I also think that marijuana could potentially be part of the solution for the elimination of opioids. Okay, so I'm going to really quickly go through this. I know I'm taking too much time. I'm going to lay out a very quick program. Now, I know there's some of these things are already going on, but here it is. I think it's going to be upon you to do this, because I think you could be the hub of this, the center of it. Imagine that you invited Claremont and its clinics to a meeting, the owners of the pharmacies to a meeting, the current addiction treatment team in Northern Westchester to a meeting, that you selected Somers doctors to that meeting, and you invited the police, the fire, and EMS representatives. There are federal grants right now to create that kind of collective approach to dealing with the opioid. And as I said to you, doctors will prescribe marijuana so that people will not go to opioids. But here's how it works. Doctors and the pharmacies would put in place an opioid monitoring system. So for example, CVS would have to produce a report of the amounts that are being refilled as well as prescribed. They cannot give us the names of the people, but they could produce reports. If those reports are in the 100 to 200 level, we still have a problem. And by the way, I got this from 3 towns that are implementing. I shouldn't get any water. Drying up. So they would look at the opioid prescription and the refills. The second thing that would happen is a care team would be set up. What's a care team? A care team would be a treatment team. But even going before this, and I'm pretty sure we're all in agreement that this is a disease. It's not an illegal act. Are we all on top of that? Do we all agree to that? That the current opioid issue is a disease. It is not an illegal act. You shouldn't be put in jail for it. You should be treated for it as quickly as possible. So the care team would potentially sit right here in a clinic in Somers, and it would be composed of 2 doctors, a nurse, a pharmacist, and a social worker. So immediately when somebody has an overdose, they would in fact be starting to get the treatment. They wouldn't go to a police station, they wouldn't go to the, they would go straight there. Today, we have one drug predominantly that we use for heroin, and that's Narcan, you all know that. But they've also developed a series of drugs for the treatment that will not cause the nausea, that will not create that environment where people are sick all the time. And they will not have to go to a rehab center, because they can go right here, get their pills, and come back home. I think you get the idea. The idea is to deal with an opioid crisis locally, you have to do something locally. Okay? I mean, I've just heard again and again platitudes. I'm not taking away anything from the work that you do, okay? I'm talking about beyond education, beyond referrals, beyond all of that. This is an action plan. As I said to you, it can be funded, but it's on you, gentlemen,
Thank
to
you.
make this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not done. Just one more
You got
page.
2 minutes.
3 minutes?
3
I'm
minutes.
sorry.
No,
We have other people.
I'll be done
let
soon.
him go.
I just want to get a sample here. How many people here actually do take CBD? That's the
Please.
cannabis.
Time, please.
Okay. If there were more people from Heritage, I think you'd find a greater. There's also Amazon. You can get on Amazon now and buy all those CBD products. So I'm not exactly sure, by not allowing people to buy the stuff here in Somers, what exactly that accomplishes, because Amazon is available for everybody, and you can buy those same products I just spoke about from Amazon.
Distribution.
But it gets down to this: to not allow access to legal products based on antiquated, I believe, antiquated, biased information is dumb. 10 states have already legalized it. They cannot all be wrong. To not allow as a replacement of opioids or fentanyl is just plain wrong. This could be a replacement. We are adults. It's our choice, not yours. Okay? I'm not a doctor, but when Cindy took it, my wife, she had a really bad back, lower back. She had bone-on-bone knee and diabetes. After 3 days, the pain disappeared. This is CBD now. This is basically a derivative of cannabis. No THC. THC is the thing that makes you high and all that. In 2 days, the pain disappeared. She also in a week, the diabetes disappeared. So I'll give you the article, and that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Okay, is there anyone here that would like to comment?
Oh, there's only 3.
The public, yes? Yes, ma'am.
Come up.
Yeah.
My name is Ann Cornick, and I'm from Shenorock, 10 Crest Drive North. I'm totally against the use of marijuana. Now, medical marijuana, I have no problem with. Okay, this gentleman kind of lumped it all together. All right, the 10 states that are doing so well with all of this, I don't think so. Because I've read so many articles about how their motor vehicle accidents are up. How do you stop this? Once we get into it, there's no taking it back. We've learned that from so many things now. And so if we let this go and say, oh, well, yeah, we're adults and we should be able to do this, and this board can't tell us what to do. Really? Somebody, if we're adults enough and we don't realize that what we're doing, then somebody has to tell us we're wrong. So this is out of line. This is out of the box. And before we have to worry about putting it back in the box, we have to deal with it now. And I compliment this board on bringing this up now and not letting it go through and then saying, oh my, what have we done? And how do we change it? because there is no going back once we let it out. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Kathy?
Hi, Kathy Cucciarella again. I just wanted to address, and I don't know if you can tell me if I can do it or I can't do it, Mr. Bloom's, some of his points.
Well, you could
Well,
talk to the public and talk to us.
Okay.
Mr.
That's
Bloom
not
can
the-
listen.
So with
not a
regards
debate.
to an organization that Dr. Kammer mentioned, SAM, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, they have done, it's run by Kevin Sabet and his great team. They have tons of scientists, doctors, medical experts, et cetera, who have done tremendous amount of work looking at the states that have legalized, and they are looking at all of the data. Their name is Smart Approaches to Marijuana. So they're not looking at this blindly. Some of the medical clinics, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, World Health Organization, National Institute of Health, these are pretty big organizations that have looked and done research. So again, we're looking at, if you look at some of the articles, and I don't really want to take up a lot of your time, but I encourage you all to go to the SAM, S-A-M website. I have something right here that I can certainly pass around, but opioid overdose fatalities have increased in Colorado since the legalization. There have been more emergency room visits, there's been more fatalities, there's been more issues with education, the teenage brain. So studies have been done. So I encourage you, I just wanted to add that this organization is doing their homework. So if you would like to go to their website, it's SAM, S-A-M, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, Dr. Kevin Sabat. They do have the latest research on marijuana and opioids and the correlations. So I encourage you to go to that website for further info.
Thank you, Kathy. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank you and the Partners in Prevention, who have been an organization for quite a number of years here in town, working on the drug crisis, along with Carol Christensen and Crisis in My Backyard. So that's much appreciated.
I'd just like to add a couple of things about some of the work that Kathy does. Reason why they call it partners, because one of the things we're doing is building partnerships. In town, it's very difficult. Participation rates are not where I want it to be or where we would all like it to be. But, we partner with the school, with other local agencies in town, community service organizations in town, and we conduct educational seminars. I mean, we've had, we're on the President's Council in Northern Westchester Hospital. They're very concerned about all of this. And we've had Dr. Stumacher from Northern Westchester Hospital come up and talk to the town and to the school. And he's chief of pulmonology and critical care. And he's talked about us about vaping, about addictive substances, and really its impact on society. And so we've got to really thank you for doing all that work. And it's going on. Everybody's welcome, but it's just maybe not as visible as we would like it to be.
Thank you for that. Is there anyone else here for public comment on the proposed legislation?
Should I just respond to
You have another
Not a
comment?
debate.
Just keep it quick.
3 minutes.
you have to use the mic.
You have to use the microphone. Thanks.
For every statistic that you mentioned, unfortunately or fortunately, there's a counter statistic. And that's the world of statistics, okay? We can't avoid that. What I was trying to do was integrate the two. We have a problem with opioids. We have a partial solution. I'm not saying it's the total solution, with the use of marijuana. Now, you all said medical marijuana. Well, the medical marijuana, unfortunately, is not that strong, okay? Because we've been through it. It's not that strong. But it's dictated not to be that strong for a reason. And what I'm trying to do here is have the ability to access what is good for people, not what's bad for people. What is good for people? This will be highly regulated, like it's been in every state. Excuse me. Let me just finish, okay? The other thing is that we have to...
Mike, you're supposed to be addressing the board, please.
We have addressed...
Well, you're not, this is not a public, just,
I think
Okay,
the
well,
supervisor
okay.
said this is not a
I'll
debate.
address the board. So the bottom line in all of this is, until we take a look at this as an option for dealing with the opioids, okay, then we're not looking at the whole picture. We're looking at a partial picture here. Now, you can be against marijuana, but I'm not against pain. I hope you're not against pain, okay? I'm not against people suffering when there's something available. And by the way, it's not addictive. So we're giving people the ability to deal with the pain, but it's not addictive. And I've had it in my family. I've now seen it in other families. You'll go to a doctor, he will prescribe a marijuana treatment. And by the way, the smoking thing, not existent that much. People don't smoke medical marijuana. It's a pill, it's an oil, it's something, but it's not something that you smoke, because nobody wants to get cancer. I mean, it's the same issue. Anyway.
thank you.
Okay, anyone else for comment on the proposed legislation? Okay, seeing or hearing none, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, so, the board has a lot to think about. We appreciate your comments this evening. The reason we are discussing this is because we are concerned with the use or the sale of marijuana in our town. Gentleman is correct. Earlier on, this legislation, you can opt out if you're 100,000 population or more of the state law, if it gets passed. If you're a city or a county, you can opt out. So there are a number of things this board would possibly position ourselves with, is to have our law, we've had our public hearing, to table actually passing the legislation until we need it. We do have a public hearing, we have your input. Our law, and Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, we are standing on home rule legislation as far as superseding what the state would say. So we think we would be on solid ground prohibiting sales in the town of Somers.
So this is what I think is happening at this point. The governor has essentially put together a proposal. It's a law that he's passed off to the legislator. It's a 100-page document within a 500-page document. I've been through the details of it. They're debating it right now, and what I'm hearing is that they may push this off beyond April. The overall objective was to essentially get it through the legislator, make the changes, and maybe get it approved by April. Right now, they're getting some opposition, and so they're thinking about discussing this, and maybe this will get extended till the June timeframe. Speculation. Because of the opt-out scenario, I mean, we would go down to the county and say, look, we would like the county to opt out, all right? And if that, then we would see how that would work. If they don't opt out, we have our thoughts and our law in terms of how we might implement this at a local level. So that's really the thought process. This is not about medical marijuana. This is not about decriminalization. All right, I have personal views on that. Medical marijuana, fine. Decriminalization, great. I don't want people and resources allocated towards individuals that get caught using this and the like. But the commercialization of the product, and it just will stimulate it, in my opinion. And it's really about the stimulation, because that's what everybody's talking about. And I think that in of itself would have, a detrimental effect to, our community and our state. But we'll see how that happens. I mean, and with some of the points that were made here, we can debate this. I mean, there's statistics on either way. But I would say to you that my experience, I work with the Partners in Prevention. When it comes to the opioid crisis, this is a regulated product. It went through a legal process. It was marketed and stimulated through medical channels, and essentially we have an opioid epidemic, and we're trying to backpedal on that. And so, I just see the stimulation, the commercialization of this. I mean, essentially, the law is a marketing plan. It creates a legal framework to wholesale, retail, agricultural distribute the product. And if you operate outside that framework, it's illegal. So if you think that you're going to be reducing court resources and the like because you're implementing this structure, I think you're going to find more of the same. So, but let's see how this evolves. And my thought is that we should try to we should oppose this. So,
Dr. Weir.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. I think that it would send a very strong signal for the board to take action now, to vote now, to go on record, to be on the right side of history. You will not regret it. Let me just share something. I really don't want to take too much time, and my wife hates it when I go into this. But
Well, we're going to limit you as well, so.
Okay, good. Just tell me.
Your
just-
wife and us on the same page.
Just go like that, I'll stop.
Okay.
But, because I am a doctor. And I started practicing before there was such a thing as OxyContin. And let me tell you about this opioid crisis. When it started, nobody thought it was bad. Nobody. I'm a primary care doctor. Look, I knew that was ridiculous to give people a bottle with 200 pills. We would never do that. But what happened? Every expert, from the state health commissioner to medical experts to, of course, the drug industry, said it was good. We had to do it. We had to do it. No one could have anticipated what happened. We're going through the same steps now with dope. And it's time to speak up. Things are changing, groups are speaking up. Hempstead voted against it, Pleasantville voted against it. You will go down, you will sleep better. Take it from me, you will sleep better at night if you're on record to oppose it.
Thanks for your comment.
Let me just say this. There's a drug crisis in this country because it's legal and it's illegal drugs. And when you have on television drug manufacturers marketing directly to consumers who go to their doctor or say, hey, I saw on TV, can I have that drug too? I mean, it's a problem nationally. It's not just this. It's not just opioids. It is us. And we look for solutions in places maybe where we shouldn't. I don't think anyone thinks that there shouldn't be antibiotics or that there shouldn't be marijuana or tea or whatever it is in it that would help with pain. And I would agree with Kathy Cucciarella that if I were in the state legislature, I'd say I'd need to see more of the experience of states that have legalized it. And maybe even in other countries to see what has happened. I'm certainly no expert on this. I don't know anything about it. I've not used it. But what I do know is this, and what I can't get out of my head, which is in teaching for 35 years and looking out in the classroom, you would see eyes that were once clear become glazed, habits that were meticulous become sloppy. And there's one girl in particular that I was just a lovely young girl in high school, and I saw her sort of go down a hill, and later she had received treatment. Does that mean it's a gateway drug? I don't know. But I just don't want to do anything in my capacity here that would in any way encourage someone especially teenagers and high school kids, but anyone, to say that, hey, it's okay, they sold it, must be okay. And I think that is what the doctor said has happened with OxyContin. So that's my position on it, but I think that to look for more experience and see what's going on, that's what I would recommend to the state, to do that. I'm not sure about this, who's opting in, who's opting out. The law is law. If I were them, I just wouldn't pass the law. And that's my position on it. It might change over time with more evidence, but I can't get out of my head excuse me,
Experience.
that one girl.
Thanks for sharing that story with us. But to your point, Doctor, the reason we're having a public hearing tonight is because we're trying to get out in front of this. We've dealt with, and I've had conversations with other supervisors throughout the town, our town attorney. We've crafted this legislation. And it's up to discussion here, gentlemen, tonight. If we can adopt this law, or we can withhold passing the law tonight, right, Jerry?
Yeah,
And
I think that's what Roland recommended.
Yes, that's what you're
So I want to do it in the best way that legally, I don't have to make a big splash, but I want to have an impact, all right? If our attorneys say that staging it this way is the best way to resolve this, I'm going to take take their advice. But, what worries me about this whole process, this whole thing, is I just got to opine on this for a minute. This is a synergistic epidemic. I mean, it just gains momentum, all right? It starts with co-occurring disorders, risky behaviors, and, you get involved with alcohol, tobacco, blah, blah, blah. And when you get to that extreme addiction or death, and you look back, you say, oh, yeah, it is connected because it was alcohol, it was marijuana, it was tobacco. But along the way, I mean, people are getting, marketed to and enticed, and it looks very sexy, and it's happening, it's happening all around us. Just the school, for instance, with vaping, it's a setback. For years, they're trying to educate about tobacco, and now with vaping products, we have 2 bathrooms open in the school and monitors there watching who's going in and out, just to try to manage, the behaviors. And that's a closed system. They do an awesome job. They have guidance there. They know what's going on to the best that anybody can know what's going on. And they're trying to deal with it. And when they're saying to me that this is just going to make this worse, I have to say, I'm not trying to be strategic or progressive. I just want to be tactical and kind of say, look, this is what makes sense for me right now. And I don't think that, this is a good thing to do. Oppose it.
So I do have a question. One of our speakers spoke about prohibiting the production, growth, and distribution. I see that we have distribution in our legislative finding and declarations, but if we were to add growth and production, that's under section 120-2, legislative findings and declarations. I mean, it's just a preamble to the law, but if we made a change in that section,
I think that's a good idea.
You mean adding the production part in it?
yeah, prohibit, so the last sentence of that section,
Well, I'm not familiar exactly with the wording of the state proposal that
well,
I
yeah,
This
assume.
isn't really
yeah,
the
this
state
is our
proposal.
local
No,
law.
I understand, but this is a reaction to the state.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
reaction to the state law. I wouldn't see any problem with that at all. It's been discussed in the public hearing and,
Okay,
you know,
all right, so,
Why don't we send that to Roland with a,
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I would suggest that we're gonna add those,
Okay.
those 2 prohibitions in there as well.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm gonna sleep well tonight, having known that we brought the issue up, we talked about it here. It may not be to everyone's pleasure or the outcome, but we will be bringing this to a vote at a
Later session.
one of our meetings once we find out what the state's going to do.
Will you also take on the,
And then, all right, so then,
that I put forward?
if you have a comment, we'll hear you one more comment.
I spent a lot of time just presenting that and a lot of research. Will you take on at least and look at that opioid plan?
You can be part of, you can talk to Kathy Cucciarella at the end of this meeting or when you finish talking. We do have partisan prevention.
Yeah.
We have, if you're, that's where you take your plan.
Crisis.
No, I'm sorry, that's not where I take the plan.
Thanks for your
Because
comment.
it requires
Thanks for your comment.
others.
Okay, next item on the agenda, publishing and posting for a public hearing. Consider a petition on a map, plan, and report prepared by Erstadt Biddle Properties LLC in the matter of extension of the extension of the Heritage Hills Special Sewer District in the town of Somers, Westchester County, New York, pursuant to Article 12 of the town law. Publishing and posting.
Notice of Verstadt Biddle's petition for the extension of the Heritage Hills sewer was published and posted on the town clerk's bulletin board and in the Somers Record on February 21st.
Thank you, Patty. I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So move. All right.
Good
And-
evening. Jody
Ma-
Cross from Zarin and Steinmetz. How are you?
How are you?
Good, thank you. We're here tonight with representatives of Erstadt Biddle and JMC.
Yep.
Is that better? All right. As you know, we're here in connection with our application to extend the Heritage Hills Sewer District to encompass the Town Center Shopping Center. This comes out of an application we had when we were before the planning board on an unrelated matter. We were seeking some circulation changes and facade changes. And around that time was when the DeChico's and Somers Crossing applications were before the boards. And they were applying to connect to sewers, and the planning board thought it would be a good idea for us to do the same. And we agreed to. So it's now a condition in our site plan approval from 2017. We worked to negotiate our agreements with the corporation, and that's all done. So here we are. We've filed our petition. We also have a planning board application pending. We have a meeting next week with the planning board to discuss the infrastructure that needs to be installed in order to facilitate this. Other than that, we see this as a benefit to not only our client, but to the town and the people of the town. We're not doing this because of any issues on our property. We're in full compliance with the septic, but we do recognize that being connected to the sewer is better. This is at no expense to the town. This is fully at our expense.
Glad to hear that.
Figured you'd like that. So just where we are is where this is the public hearing. Obviously, your board is holding on the petition. We understand that the board has declared its intent to act as lead agency for the coordinated SECRA review. Unfortunately for us, that was 28 days ago, and SECRA requires 30 days, so we can't ask you tonight to declare yourselves as lead agency. But we would ask that following the public hearing tonight, that the public hearing be closed. We'd be put on an agenda for April, at which time we'd ask the board to declare itself as lead agency, and hopefully by then, since we'd already been before the planning board, you'd have enough information and would be able to issue a negative declaration.
Okay, thank you.
And otherwise, we're here to answer any questions.
So I would ask if anyone's here for public comment on extending the sewer district to include Somerstown Shopping Center. Okay, seeing and hearing no one?
I do have one question, just a common sense question.
Sure.
How do you see this connection? How does your client see this connection as benefiting the shopping center itself? How will it change it, enhance it in any way that at least the public will be able to see?
That's a really good question. I'm going to ask Rob Ayala to come up and address that.
You want to go next?
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the town board. Rob Aiello, a professional engineer with JMC. In terms of the benefits of converting from a septic system to a sewer connection that goes to a wastewater treatment plant, the environmental benefits are that the sewage is no longer treated under the parking lots or in the grass areas, so it will remove pollutants from the environment. The site is located adjacent to a DEC wetland, so that will be a benefit to the overall wetland. Beyond the environmental standpoint, from a operational standpoint, it's less maintenance that needs to be done on the system itself. And from a use standpoint, it does enable you to have perhaps more wet uses if the, for example, restaurants or salons or things of that nature, because now you're no longer constrained by sewage with your health department approvals.
Awesome.
Do you have clients, or does your client have tenants that are looking to get in because you would be on you'd be off septic and into a sewer management system?
Well,
is there any
we're on the
plans that work
engineering
like that?
side. But what I do know is, just as a matter of course, it does open up the opportunity for more tenants.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you do have properties that are on septic systems, you are limited
Sure.
to the people that you can speak with, depending on the mix in your center at the time.
So it's possible. We don't know yet, but possible.
Correct.
Yeah, I would venture to say that having Somerstown Shopping Center move from septic to sewer opens up a wide variety of new business opportunities. Salons use a lot of water. You can have more seats in restaurants. Right now, they're limited, as this gentleman said, by seating by the health department. Once they get connected, the only seating requirements are going to have to meet this fire code. So it should open, a wide variety of more business opportunity there.
Thank you.
Yes, Teresa.
Perhaps you can repeat the question for those.
That's our tax assessor.
Right. Well, I don't know that we have the answer to that question, and I'm not sure it's respectfully relevant to our application here. I think that's a business issue for the client.
Okay,
Sure.
understood.
Is the idea
Not
to,
illogical, though.
is the idea to interconnect all the different stores
I don't,
immediately? Once we bring in the sewer, they have to be interconnected to each one of the, sort of the facilities, each one of the stores.
each of the spaces, each
Right.
of the tenancy spaces would be connected to the sewers.
Is part of this project?
Correct.
Okay, so there's interconnects there.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
It's just not bringing the...
Double check with the
yeah,
engineer,
it's just
yes.
not bringing the main sewer line into the newly created sewer district. You're going to go through a process of interconnecting with each of the stores.
That's correct, and that's part of our site plan application.
Yes, okay.
So if there's no one else for public comment, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. And, we will wait to hear from the planning board on your visit, and the next meeting, declare ourselves lead agency and take action.
Great, thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank
Thank you.
So those two buildings are not connected to share a roof and all
Okay, I'll make a motion to open public comment.
that. Oh, go ahead, clearly, yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone here for public comment? For the Scouts, this is an opportunity for anyone in the audience or anyone in town to come in and talk to us about anything that's on their mind. You heard earlier during our public hearings, that was relatively specific to our marijuana legislation, although there was some digression. But this is the opportunity where if anybody wants to complain about someone's bird feeder is attracting rodents, or someone's
dog is
rooster is
barking.
crowing, they could come up and tell us about
That's
it.
right. You're giving them ideas, Rick.
I know.
What's up with this? There he is.
I see a hand.
I could tell on his face.
Yes, come on up to the mic.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. There you go.
Okay.
He's gonna come up.
So name and address, please.
Lucas Fry.
Into the mic?
Lucas Fry, 45 Bozeman Avenue.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything about pond scum or pollution that is caused by chemicals which could improve your lawns?
Runoff, yes.
Yes.
So the town is actively working on stormwater retrofits. So what that is, when it rains, the rain goes across people's yards, whatever on their yard, fertilizer, whatever, goes into the street, goes down into a storm drain, then finds its way to a stream, and then down into our ponds, lakes, and the reservoirs. So one such project that the town is working on right now is over in Shenorock. So Lake Shenorock for years and years has been the recipient of just what you're talking about. All those homes up there, all the stormwater comes down. That's one of the lowest points in Shenorock, and the water goes in there. Not only does it bring pollutants and biologics, it brings silt. And over the years, that body of water has become silted. And I would suspect it's probably only about 8 feet in the middle of that lake, whereas at one time it might have been 20 feet. So the town applied for a grant 2017. We received $845,700 from the Environmental Facilities Corporation, New York State, to do a stormwater retrofit. So if you go around Lake Shenorock tomorrow, you're going to see some earth-moving equipment. And what's going to happen there, we're going to put in stormwater retrofits. So what they're going to do is collect the water running off the streets before it goes into the lake. And it's going to direct them away from the lake into the ground. So that's going to avoid, you call it pond scum, there's a name for that, it's called blue-green algae or algae. And that forms, every spring on Lake Shenorock, and there's a water body right next to the Amawak Reservoir. That's the first body of water that really algaes up. So we're going to look, once these retrofits are in place, we're going to look to see that no longer happens. And we'll be dealing with, good question. Good
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Can I ask
Very
you a
thoughtful
question?
and great question.
Since we all respect the Boy Scouts, and most of us were Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
If you were going to go out and poll all the Boy Scouts who you know, what do you think, just off the top of your head, would be the one thing that the Scouts would say, here's something you should do, town board, that would really make the town better? What do you think it would be? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but
He may put you
Every
on the spot.
Friday off from school is not an answer.
you have anything in mind?
No school on Fridays?
No school Fridays.
We like to talk about,
We could petition the school.
we like to talk about free parking.
I could do 3-day weekends.
Okay.
When we've run, in the past, the Energy Environment Committee has run essay contests with kids your age, asking that question. And many times I think the most common answer was making the town more walkable for kids, to walk and ride bikes on streets that are very difficult to do that. So that's just one thing in the past that we've noticed when we've read those essays that have come in. So sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, it's okay.
Leading the witness.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Thank
question.
Thanks for your question. That gave me an opportunity to give an update on our stormwater project.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, if no one else is here for public comment, yes, sir.
My name is Roy Pepino, 7 Somerset Drive, and I'm not related to the Katona Pepinos.
Okay.
My
So we
one
won't
co-
ask you for any recipes.
My one comment, Rick, I realize that there are 2 state roads where it is, I guess, legal to turn right on a red light. One being at the bottom of Brick Hill Road, the other one on 138 and 100. Now, I know that they are state roads and you have no jurisdiction over them, but can the town put some pressure on DOT at least to put signs, no right on red, on those two intersections? Because both intersections, on the left-hand side, there are trees. You can't see the oncoming traffic. And if you start making a right-hand turn and somebody's doing 50, 45 miles an hour on either Brick Hill Road or 138, there's going to be a serious accident.
Yeah, we can certainly talk to the DOT about that. On 138, though, there is a controlled right-hand turn on red, because you get an arrow. But if you approach that traffic light and the arrow's not lit, you're still permitted to take a turn, I would think.
Yep.
And I know what you're talking about. I've been there, and you can see that. Brick Hill Road, there is no controlled right-hand turn, right? You just have to stop, look, and make the turn.
And on both sites, there is
Sideline problems?
shrubs and stuff where it does restrict your line of sight.
Maybe we could ask for some statistics at those intersections.
Well, that's what they're going to ask for.
Right,
That's
that's
how
what
they
they're gonna
base their
ask for.
changes.
So maybe that would be, if we find that, we can pass that on.
Thank you for your comment. All right, is there anyone else here for public comment? Okay, seeing and hearing, yeah, come on up, Don.
Hi, everybody. Do I have to give my address and all that?
Yeah.
Too?
Name and serial number.
Don Bleasdale, 66 Forest Lane. I know Dan is going to speak about the community choice, the new contract. Just wanted to say in advance of that, just to recommend that we pick the renewable side of that. I think when I read that, I think there's, the first time around, there were 6 that picked the renewable rate, or no, 20 that picked the renewable. I think there were 6 that picked the basic
Standard
rate.
rate.
I think now someone said there's only 1. So in line with our sustainability action plan and the fact that I think across the board, even with the green rate, which would be slightly less savings than the basic rate, I just think it would be good in line with what we're trying to promote, being clean action community and all that, to opt for that. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Okay, is there? Anyone else here for public comment? All right, seeing and hearing none, I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Next item on the agenda is department reports.
I have reports from the town clerk, building inspector, zoning board of appeals, plumbing, bureau of fire prevention, parks and recreation, planning and engineering, tax receiver, and director of finance.
Thank you, Patty. All right, the next item on our agenda is to authorize the supervisor to execute a number of assessor-related motions. So I'm going to ask our town assessor to come up and address us.
Good evening, everyone. It's a little past my bedtime, but I'll try to do the best I can.
We'll get you out of here post-haste.
Okay.
So the first one up here is the CAI Technologies contract for online GIS internet service. So it's in the amount of $5,850, and you're recommending that we purchase that upgrade.
Correct. I put that in my budget for this year. Basically, it will allow all of my inventory information and assessment information to be online for the public to view. This will, in general, lower the amount of appraisers, title searchers, realtors that come into my office and require copies of property record cards.
Okay,
and
so is
information
this
from the
something you're
system.
not doing now?
This is well, right now, we have to make copies, we do everything.
So,
It's
I mean,
in
but
the
this will be-
office. This will be available online for everyone to see, so it will essentially.
Work saving?
Right, so I did a little cost analysis, just, manpower kind of thing. And being very conservative, it would save about $4,000 a year in manpower.
Okay,
So-
very good. The renewal contract for the town's 2019 tax map maintenance with CAI again.
Okay, that is a standard contract we've had for years with them. We are required to do tax mapping. In most of the state, the county does tax mapping, but in Westchester, we have town rules, so the towns do the tax mapping. And since I am not a tax mapper, and most towns do not have tax mappers, they hire an outside company to do that. I think Greenberg is the only one that actually has an internal tax mapper. So that's the standard cost it has been for the last several years.
Okay. Then the next one.
Yeah, the
you're gonna
next
have
one
to
is tricky. Okay. So
You're gonna have to explain this to
I'll give
us.
you a little background on this.
This is the exemption renewals for the Halleck Cemetery?
Correct. So this exists every year, essentially. I mean, every year, these renewals come up, and I have taken them and essentially put them in a drawer, which is what 99% of all assessors will do with these things, because normally nobody responds. The town has taken over. I understand that. I could ask the attorney that when a cemetery is abandoned, the town has to take it over essentially and maintain it. So we have a lot of these little tiny cemeteries spread throughout the town that have been abandoned, and now the town has taken them over, I guess, but their addresses or to send these renewals to these exemption renewals to people, they just come back to me all the time. And in fact, I got a couple more from the post office that I didn't even realize we had. Warren Cemetery and St. Joseph's came back. I thought that one might be
Really?
controlled by, yeah. It has a P.O. box, but it was returned. I don't.
Yeah, they have an
They do.
address. You have to send it to
Okay, all right, so I'll do that.
Okay,
But
so
anyway, so
that
the
one we'll
address,
have to
that
look
one will
into.
not, right, but we have quite a few. So anyway, what really prompted me to do this was, we had a meeting last February with the state comptroller's office, and they promised that they would audit
Oh,
all
boy.
the assessor's offices throughout the state. Now, I don't think they have the manpower to do that, quite frankly, but they have.
It was a
they have-
viable threat.
Right, it was, right, exactly. And one of the things that was brought up were wholly exemptions, and cemeteries specifically, that was a problem when they audited the offices, that there were no exemptions, renewals for cemeteries. Okay, so it's really as simple as having someone say, okay, well, the town is responsible for it. We'll have the person who's got the highest authority in the town to sign this. So, if that would be acceptable to the board, that perhaps Rick could sign for cemetery, because nobody's going to be building anything on cemeteries. Since Poltergeist came out, I don't think anyone would ever do that again.
That kind of closed the lid on that, no pun intended.
Okay.
Okay, and item last is the agreement with the Leahy Company for a complete review of the town's workers' compensation experience ratings for July 19th to 2020. That is not you.
That's not me. So.
That's not you. So I'm going to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to execute A through C. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And Teresa, thank you.
Thank you. And welcome to the 2000s.
Yeah.
Computers, are they still here?
Thank you for all your detailed work, Teresa.
Teresa, let me just say that we are very lucky to have you as an assessor. You are a leader in the state association.
Yep.
Your attention to detail, in addition to your cheerful service, friendly service when people come into your office,
Can't be
represents
easy all the
Somers very well. So we are very fortunate to have you working here.
And proud of
appreciate
you.
We are.
Okay, and so item D is an agreement with the Leahy Company for a complete review of the town's workers' compensation experience ratings for July 19th through July 2020 per email from Bob Kehoe, Finance Director. I'll make a motion to move that.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay, we're going to come back to E. And I'd like to move on to number 2, community choice aggregation discussion. And with us tonight is Dan Welsh.
Good evening. Hi.
Good evening.
Sick of me, right?
No, not really.
We see you every 3 to 2.5 years. That's fine.
So I'm Dan Welch with Sustainable Westchester, and I'm here to fulfill our obligations to go out after the bidding process and report the results in all the communities. And we did finish that bid and successfully obtained the new contract. Sustainable Westchester, everybody recognizes from one program or another. So the second slide, you got Solarize, Heat Smart just launched. That's a new heat pump promotion, and we're doing a lot of work in electric vehicles. You'll see our Drive Green Westchester activity ramp up over the next few weeks. You'll hear something about that. Just quickly for the audience, the Community Choice Aggregation, the electric power purchasing program. The distinguishing features of the program is that the participating municipalities, the municipality picks a default supply. We have two supplies, a 100% renewable and a standard. The participating municipality picks a supply, but then the residents of the municipality have the option to switch supply or opt out of the program. But if they don't take any action, they will end up with the default supply. The RFP for the new contract, which is to start on May 1st, the proposals for that were due on February 21st at 11 a.m. They came in, as is our sort of practice. We went back out to everybody and said, "You sure you don't have a little bit more for us? If you do, you'll get it to us by," at that point it was 1 o'clock p.m. because we have to close by 2 so that the award can be made and they can lock in their futures with the trading desk. In both rounds, a new bidder, Direct Energy, was leading, and eventually we did recognize them as having the best offer. They were about 0.15 cent stronger than our current supplier in their offer. So we've got a new supplier in the mix now. As it says on the next slide, Direct Energy, another mega corporation, 28 billion euro European multinational, with Direct being their U.S. subsidiary. They have business all over the states in various forms of electric trade, and a lot of that with aggregation. So they have aggregation business like ours in Ohio, Illinois, and Massachusetts. So that gave us a lot of comfort that we were going with somebody that we didn't have to teach the business, shall we say. They've been in New York State for about 14 years just doing regular ESCO business, but this will be their first aggregation, community choice aggregation in New York State. The new contract, as we go out with the bids, we ask for rates we asked for 1 year, 2 year, and 3 year, and then we say, give us also any other term that you think might be exciting for us. And it turned out that the best offer was actually a 19-month contract. So the rates under that offer are 6.61 cents per kilowatt hour for the standard supply, non-renewable, and 6.93 cents per kilowatt hour for the renewable. You have here our current rates, which are 7.27 and 7.41 cents. You'll see both of the renewable and the standard rates came in nicely under the current rates, to the extent that even the renewable rate offers an opportunity to reduce current charges by about 1/3 of a cent over the current standard rate. So that's a nice little bonus we got out of this
Right,
bid.
and Dan, those numbers include the zero emissions credit.
That's right.
On
Yeah.
That the governor's program put
Yeah,
on?
so there's no additional. This is all in, including the
Apples
including
to
the
apples,
ZEC.
though, both sides.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. The ZEC appeared in March, April of 2017, and at that point, it was brought down from on high in New York and constituted an action of the state that it actually ended up we had to add it to our price. But today it's a fixed part of the landscape. It was part of the bid. It was specifically written into the bid just to make sure. And so, yes, it's included.
Let's hope we get no other surprises over the next 19 months.
Yeah, one would hope. So the next steps are per the mandated processes. We're going out with the notification letter on Monday. I've been working daily with the supplier on data issues and the letter formatting and all that type of nuts and bolts. There'll be a 30-day opt-out period, as there always is when people are alerted to this. During that period, if they notify us and they can come out. It actually has less impact today because it's people are already in the program, so it's almost the same as a normal opt-out. But anyway, it's kind of a milestone where they get alerted to the new rates and they can make a decision if they'd like to. And as I said, those new rates take effect after May 1st. For any individual, it takes place, it starts as of their first meter read after May 1st, and then you would see it on the bill in the next bill, so that would be a June bill for that previous period.
Okay, and I may sound like a broken record, but I can't say this enough. So people at Heritage Hills that were on day-night rates will be automatic, they will not get your notification letter about being included in the program?
They will not get that notification letter. They're going to get a letter. It's
Okay,
going to
this
tell
is-
them that unless they voluntarily come to us and say, I want to be in your program, they will
That's the
be
way-
terminated at the end of this
And
term.
is that the same letter that'll go to people who opted out the last time?
That, if we do that, let's just do that as a separate exercise so we don't, involve it in this. I think it's a good idea to go back out to those
So
people.
they'll get that same type of letter if you want to opt into the
Yeah.
program, right?
Yeah, I
But
think
they
we
will
should-
not be
we should do
told
that.
they're being transferred into the
Yeah,
program.
I haven't got
Okay.
that teed up with this batch here, but there's no reason we can't do that.
But there's not a
sooner.
date we can say to people, oh, if you weren't in the program before, you should expect this letter on that date. That's still, you got to work on that.
The folks that are in the program, are you
Folks
talking
that
about
are
ones that
out.
opted out?
Ones that opted out,
Oh, if they opted out, then it'll just be a matter that they will be voluntarily opting in.
but they're not going to get a letter.
No, we haven't got, as I say, we haven't got any such
We're
letter
saying
teed up for that.
Maybe
Right.
in the future.
But
Right, I was
there's
just
no
wondering if
reason
there was
we
a
can't
particular date.
Start looking to do that right after we get past, get the
Okay.
dust settled from
Right.
this new contract.
Right.
I think it would be a good exercise.
I think so.
Yeah. Even further to the day-night, you know that we did ask the bidders to supply a set of day-night rates if they felt themselves capable of it. We made it an optional thing because we didn't know that they could do it or not, and we didn't want to set up a situation where we got no compliant bids. As a result, we got one set of rates from Constellation, but they were really only day-night in the sort of trivial sense. There was a slight nudge above sort of our standard rate and below, and there wasn't really enough spread to really constitute a useful set of rates. So we didn't deem them as being enhancing the offer in any particular way. So that's still an important issue for us. We want to go out there and learn more about this and figure out how we can generate value for the folks who do have these kind of day-night meters. And that would include as simple a thing as going out there and extending what we do now with our Read Your Bill workshops and making sure that when we do that, we're teaching people how to assess your own bill and understand your bill. We just had a seniors meeting over in Lewisboro where our staff went there and did this workshop, and there was a significant number of day-night folks there, and many of them didn't really know how to understand, what the cost impacts would be. And these are sharp people, and but it's a really obscure thing to try and figure out, what those costs are.
Dan, I think this is a great idea, having those workshops and, sign us up. I know I've spoke about this when I speak at Heritage Hills 10 a.m. Men's Club and with the society. But if
Great, bring
we could
us in.
plan an event, speak over at the Heritage Hills Activity Center, open to the
Yeah,
whole
of course.
town, to learn how to read your electric bill.
Good, so I'll coordinate with you.
Yeah,
It's
please do.
It's a useful service anyway, just so people understand
Yep.
what they're going in with eyes open. And if we can, maybe we'll try to create some sort of a calculator. People can plug their past 12 months usage in and get an idea of comparing, if I'm on day-night rates or if I'm on a single discount rate with the CCA, in which case are they better off? Because in a lot of cases, people don't really realize, for example, some people thought day-night, the off-peak rates kick in as soon as the sun goes down, essentially, which is not the case. They don't start until 11:30 at night.
Yeah, they have to stay up a little later.
So you do have to
do their wash.
You have to take some steps to shift your load if you're going to take advantage of it.
So Dan, just quickly on the budget side of this, when we change contracts, we need to notify people that they have
The budget billing.
The
thing?
budget billing.
So I had a good long talk with the supplier and also talked to NYSEG.
Awesome.
And we're set up as good as we can be. We're lucky that NYSEG is what they call a bill-ready utility. Con Ed is not. Con Ed is a rate-ready. Bill-ready means that the calculations are all done on the supplier side, and then they just send in the number, as opposed to in a rate-ready utility, the supplier just gives the unit rate to the utility, and the utility calculates the bill. So what that does is it means that our supplier can set up those budgets ahead of time and not depend on the utility or anything. So they'll be ready with those budgets. We have the accounts flagged as who's on budget billing, and so it should be seamless.
Awesome.
So is that going to be in that letter of notification?
We haven't specifically put anything in there saying it will be seamless, but we hope they don't
But
not
you
even
offer it.
notice that the process has happened. So we're on top of that one.
Well, thank you for going for the extra mile on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
I
we're
mean-
obviously, we had some issues initially. I think a big part of the issue was just in the conversion to going to an ESCO and the catch-up that happened on the NYSEG side of the bill. Now they're already broken apart like that. We shouldn't see that piece. So again, just to sort of summarize what's going to happen as a matter of public information, the residents will receive this letter as a matter of standard information supply. They'll know that they have two different supply options, that they can switch between those if they care to, if they want to switch from whatever the default is. The two pricing levels will be presented, and all the contact information. If they want to make any kind of change, they can call us, they can go to the website, and all that information will be there. And I'll provide this also, if you post this with the minutes and wherever you like, then they'll have that information in that form as well. And just again, a reminder that a lot of what we do is the customer service and just talking to people and helping them with their bills. This afternoon, our staff, a lot of them went over to Peekskill. They had an event. I was there on the phone talking to people and helping them understand what they were seeing on their bills. And we look at each one of those phone calls as creating an asset in the form of more understanding for people, so that they can understand what's going on with their energy lives.
So Dan, just with our prior contractor, we were given a contact person who could, town would get a call about a bill, we would copies of it, but we had to learn how to do the bill. But then once we had that contact person, are we going to have the same type of a relationship with Direct Energy? They're going to designate
Oh
someone
yeah,
from
we
our
have
team?
an operations contact. We would say that, if anybody
Yeah,
has
but
a
you guys
question.
want to take those calls first,
We
right?
want to take the calls.
You got them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to get some people will call your office and say what's going on. Direct them to us, at least for the sort of basic, like, what is this program about? Because we do it all the time, and we kind of know the different thought threads that are out there in terms of what does come up, and know how to address it. So we welcome those calls. In fact, we actually tell the suppliers that on all their communications, we want our number on there. We'd rather take those calls than send them to a supplier call center or where they're out there in Indiana or wherever they're at. And they're perfectly competent, but they can't know as well as we know the kinds of things that our folks here locally are most concerned about. So that's the way we address
Dan,
it.
when in the last, go around. That contract was what, 2 years or 3 years, the first one?
It's 3 years.
3
It'll be
years, so
3
we're
years.
ending.
Yeah.
How many people called and to either opt out or change their plan in some way? Is that a large percentage, or probably most people didn't even notice?
Oh, in terms of like switching their plan, it's a very small number. It's
Are you talking about Somers, though?
well,
No, I'm
we
just
had
asking
lots
in
of,
general.
we had a high attrition, as everybody knows, from all the, from whether it be the budget billing or the day-night and things like that. So we lost a lot. And we know now that, there's a high percentage of day-night accounts around, and we want to, as I said, create some different products or initiatives that would benefit them. So we had a high level of attrition from that.
Although the day-night people would have saved money had they stayed in, I think you said last time, right?
I said that there's certain ones that
Certain
will. We
ones,
know that
okay.
we know there are some that would have. We don't know which ones though.
I see.
Because we look at the average profile that NYSEG gives, and we know that if they were slightly less aggressive in moving their load, that their likelihood is they would have done okay.
Right.
And the rates are changing too. So if we look back in the past year, that even that average profile would have done better. It was 2 years ago when the rates were
But
kind
very
of
few
out there.
switched plans.
Yeah, not many switch at all. Right.
So, Dan, in all this good discussion, was there any talk about how to simplify the invoice so our people don't need to take a class to understand it?
Well, this is a point that I make with the DPS staff every time I meet them, that the bill is the one piece of information that everybody gets once a month, and we are missing this huge opportunity to communicate well with them and to help them to understand what's going on. And it's an antiquated system. You just can imagine the gerbils running around the wheels on these ancient systems over in the utilities. Every time you want to make a change to that, it has to go up to the PSC as a big hearing, and so change will come slow there. That is a trouble. Even with the so-called switch card, which is after the 30 days is over, and folks are going to come in, there's one more card that goes out from the utility, and it says, "Congratulations," but if you didn't, so something to the effect like, if you didn't make this switch, or then let us know. You can still, you go to 3-day rescission period, but the language is written for the typical person who's signing up through an ESCO, and it doesn't really reflect the CCA, so that causes confusion. We asked them, can you have 2 different cards? No, the system doesn't allow for 2 cards. So those are the struggles we have with the communications, and it's our job to get out there and try to.
It goes even further than that. Most people think that the electric company, right, supplies the electricity. 10 years ago, that was deregulated.
Right.
They separated the generation of electricity
Exactly.
from the delivery. So when you get a NYSEG bill, what you're doing is NYSEG essentially runs the electric wires and the infrastructure, right?
Right.
And when you get that bill, you get this thing called, your landline and your usage. Is about 5 elements in there, and that's about 7 cents. In comes
Right.
the supply, which is you, right? And so we're going to buy this
Right.
from another carrier, and what happens is NYSEG gives them the kilowatt hours, and they apply it to the rate that we're going to choose, and then they apply it to the bill, and you get the bill.
Right.
So NYSEG is a billing company and a transmission company. They're not a supply company.
Correct.
The supply is handled by the federal government. I mean, there's a federal regulated
Well, it's
process,
the
right?
New York ISO.
New York
It's
ISO,
a
right.
regional thing.
Right, and they're
So-
part of the federal regulators.
Right.
So,
Right. And that's, you just described the first 3 minutes and 43 seconds of most phone calls that we have, which is
Right.
first set it out and just explain how the structure is.
and the confusing part of this is in the absence of what you're doing, NYSEG goes out and buys supply and puts it on their bill and gives it to the customer. So when the customer sees this, they're saying, I'm getting transmission and supply. It's all one thing. They have no
Right.
idea that.
Sometimes we get people who call and say, well, wait, I don't want Constellation also, because I'm paying twice.
Right.
And we have to explain, no, it's like either or. If you don't have a supplier like Constellation, then NYSEG, as the supplier of last resort, it gets it from the ISO and it's a pass-through.
So why do this? Because we're getting lower rates because we're buying in bulk.
Right.
I mean,
And
that's the
lower
concept.
and fixed, we're locked in now with this new rate until the end of next year, 2-year contract, so we'll get a lot of protection here. Now, of course, we tonight, you guys have committed on the standard. There was understanding that you might take one last review and look at that supply option one last time. Should you choose to make a switch from the standard supply, then we still have a couple hours left before the mailing goes out that we can make that switch. So if you have any questions.
Right, well, that's our next agenda item.
Okay.
Good segue.
Great.
So yeah, as Dan mentioned, I did sign a contract for Direct Energy for the standard rate. I'm, with all due respect to our Energy Environment Committee and the fact that we are a NYSERDA clean energy town, I'm all for sustainable energy as demonstrated by our new solar panel down at the highway garage, and we have one in the library.
Have one in the school as well.
At the school, but initially when we ran this program, we went with the standard rate. The pushback I got from the general public, how dare you change my supplier? I said, well, look, it was in the best interest of the town, and we picked the rate that's going to save you the most money. So anything we do here on the board is in the best interest of the town. And that's why I picked, last go round, the standard rate people, town of Somers, we saved the most money. So I would encourage people to contact Direct Energy, and if you so desire, get on the sustainable, the renewable supply. But I think as one member of a board, I would say that I'm selecting for the bulk of the people the standard rate. So let's get some feedback.
And I, as you know, I think differently.
There you go.
We're talking about, usually when you're talking about environmental products. Now, unless you say climate change is not real or people's actions in emitting carbon have no impact on it, well, that's one position. But if you adopt that position, that there is a problem, it's going to be huge in the future, we have an impact on it, generally the choice is, well, we'd have to spend more money to have that advantage, and that becomes a trade-off. Here we're talking about either of these options lowering the cost of energy for everyone in the program. So you can pay less and you can go fully renewable through hydropower, having no impact, at least on carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So to me, this is a win-win situation that doesn't come along very often. So what's the cost of this? About 1/3 of a cent per kilowatt hour. Over the course of a month, it's approximately $3. But it's less than what people are paying now. So for me, originally we took the standard because there was no guarantee that the renewable would be a reduction in what people were paying for power then. So we said, well, we can't increase people's rates. The idea is to decrease. We're in favor of community choice aggregation. We're in favor of making this choice because it has to be almost all of us to have an impact. It's a massive buying program. It's like Costco for energy. So we made a choice there. So yeah, I agreed with that then. But here we can reduce the cost of energy, and we can have an impact. Now, are we changing the world? No, it requires huge actions on the part of governments internationally to have an impact. But like with the marijuana legislation, I will have a hard time myself if say I didn't do everything I could to reduce greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Now you say, well, everybody can choose that on their own. That's why I asked the question. How many people do that? Very little. I didn't even do it. You know, I'm the problem. But I'm just like everybody else. You just kind of, okay, there's the bill. Oh, good. My price went down. Fantastic.
Well, you have a chance
not
to
think
make it
about
up now.
Yeah, well, yes,
program.
I certainly will if this vote goes against what I think. But I strongly urge us to do that, because rarely do you have the opportunity to take an environmentally sensible, what in my opinion is an environmentally sensible policy, and reduce cost. Usually it's one or the other, which makes it difficult. There's only so many resources you have. This is a win-win proposition, and I urge us to adopt the renewable option.
Dan, are we going to have any more green electrons come to my house when I do this? This is the conversation we get
Electrons
into.
are not green.
I know.
Themselves.
Okay, so
The
are we
issue
getting
is-
renewable electrons?
The issue is who you're paying to produce those electrons and what methods they use, and are those methods clean and green. So we are going to be paying the people who produce green energy to put that energy in the grid. But the electrons going in your house, nobody knows where they come from. The grid is a big stew of electricity, but we're paying for the power that we use, and track that back to the generator, and yes, it's cleaner.
So when you ask the second question here, this is where I get a little bit caught up in this. Essentially, there's a pool of electric, and I would say to you that this is, if you select renewable, definitely it's a vote for renewable energy, but it's not necessarily a purchase of renewable energy. It's a payment for renewable energy, right? You're going to pay a higher rate. And then I would also say that when you look at the pool, I mean, if you're interested in green, if you look at the pool of energy that we have in New York State, 20% of it's hydro, another maybe 30% of it's nuclear, although we're not going to get, that's not producing, greenhouse gas emissions. So half of the, more than half of the energy grid that's produced here, I mean, if you take this rate, you're participating in green energy. And so, I don't think we're getting the full benefit of what people might think on the surface. I want a renewable energy. I'm going to make a renewable election, but I'm not really going to get a renewable product.
It doesn't
I'll get a
mean-
renewable cost.
It doesn't mean that what comes into your house or what comes into my house is different than what comes into my neighbor's house. You're right. It can't separate it out.
But you're not
But
gonna
as
get-
as an old economics teacher, what we're doing is increasing the demand for renewable energy. And the more that demand increases, the more that will be supplied to meet that demand. And that means that there will be less that will be supplied by other sources that may pollute the atmosphere. So to me, it's a simple economics equation of supply and demand. We're trying to increase the demand for renewable sources, particularly hydropower, which will then have an impact on the market. So that's how I look at it, just supply and demand.
And this is recognized through the state system, the NIGAT system, New York State Generating Asset Tracking System. That's how we gradually increase our percentage of green electricity on the grid, is purchasing this electric power through these systems.
I understand
So,
the
Richard,
economics of that.
I understand
yeah.
everything you said, Richard, but I want the resident to make that choice. I don't think government should be making that choice.
Have we already decided, though, that
Initially,
we can
we
make
did.
a choice? I mean, if we should, in my opinion, then we shouldn't go into, you could argue, don't go into the program because you are, as some people say, who are you to make this choice for us? I understand that.
I've had those
But,
complaints.
yeah, but I mean, we sort of make that choice. It is in the public good to do that in their pocketbook, and now we say it's in the public good in terms of the environment. And by the way, people, your cost will go down. So to me, that's why I say this is an easy choice, at least for me.
But they could go down further still, and that's why I have to agree with the supervisor. I don't think it's my role to speak for our citizens' pocketbooks. If I did, I'd run for Congress. And the cheapest option that we have is the one that I'm going to support, especially because the folks who wanted to have that even greener option and pay the extra $3 a month, which comes to $360,000 a year for all of Somers, they have that option.
But don't we have an obligation, some higher than that, to the environment and being leaders in this, to take an action that, the average person isn't going to take the time, doesn't really know about it? Isn't that our obligation there to lead in this situation, particularly because we're going to save people money in the process?
I think not, given the expense gets carried forward to the taxpayer.
I don't disagree. I mean, for a vote for green energy, I think, I like technology. I like the idea of doing this. We have green electrons coming off of all the solar panels that we've put here. The highway department, the school, right? And
Library.
And the library. So, we're making investments. I kind of feel that your presentation is accurate, but it's a soft expression of trying to create increased demand to get investments. If I look at this in the next 2 years, Indian Point's going to be repurposed. That's 2 gigawatts of power. That's like 15 million households, 1.5 million households. So, that's going to take a lot of energy off the grid. There's going to be a tremendous amount of demand to look to renewables to fill the gap over the next couple of years. So, I think this is a vote, but it doesn't really deliver a reality for me. It gives up about half of the savings. So if the savings over the contract life is whatever, $250,000, you're giving half of that up to make the election for renewable energy. And the thing that's happening in this, the savings are based on a spread, right? And what we've seen since the last contract, that spread's narrowing. When the spread narrows, the outcome becomes more difficult to save, right? Because there are a lot more variability, and you don't have such a large spread to absorb all that, right?
But I always have to give the caution that we're in a fixed rate program. We don't exactly know we have no crystal ball for where the market rates are going. So where the spread will be is not determined at this point.
So,
but there's a fixed rate. Either one of these is a fixed rate for 19 months.
That's right. We're in a fixed rate, and we can look back historically at what happened. But we can't say that we're guaranteeing savings, but we're locking ourselves into a very competitive rate that was obtained, through a bidding process.
Yeah, so when I look at this, there's a couple of steps to compare this. When your analysis, you're comparing green to green and standard to standard, but from the client's point of view, the customer's point of view, he's coming off of a standard rate. So if I look, I'm comparing standard to standard, or the standard rate that we're getting right now to the renewable rate, which, is it's a larger step. A half a penny in this whole situation means hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of the entire system.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about the average homeowner here. We're talking about $3 a month. Now, the average homeowner might say, hey, $3 a month, that's enough for me, which they have the option then of pulling. I just think there's a greater common good. There's a greater, the general welfare, to which we take an oath when we take our office. The general welfare of the public is better served. And the average person can say, you know what? I don't care about that. I believe climate change is a myth, and I don't think people have anything to do with it. This whole thing's a crock. Some people take that position. Some people say that we never landed on the moon, and there's spaceships in Roswell. They're entitled to that. But they can so you say people can make that decision. I say they can too. I just say the better good and saving money can be taken by the renewable option. I guess I'm not going to win this vote, but I do feel strongly about it, obviously. And I think listen, as the original member of the Energy Environment Committee, you know that my devotion to the cause has been great and long, and I've taken great pride in what we have a town board, and with Mary Beth Murphy and other town board members in the past, I take great pride in what we've done as a town. I think there's a logical step in what we have done to continue that direction that we've begun in the past together.
So I just want to make sure that, I don't
I-
want to conflate my decision to saying that I'm against, green energy and the like, and conflate it to some, larger issue of climate change. When you go through it, I don't think that my decision is going to really impact this. And, I think, I just rely on the costs and to get the best experience. And the win-win is I think it's to the lower cost. If I knew I could, customers come up to me and when we're doing presentations and we talk about this, and I got to tell them, well, you're not really getting, green energy. You're voting for green energy, but not more is coming to your house. And that's a disappointment in some cases.
More green energy will only come to your house directly if you put solar panels right on your house.
Exactly.
At that point, the potential and the physics of it
even
is
then,
such
that
that,
goes back
yes,
to the
you're
grid.
probably getting
Right.
it right from those panels.
Right.
But if we do, a solar farm, 20 miles away, you're really having a huge impact. You're still not getting those electrons necessarily. So I'm not sure that that's a useful way to have a conversation with somebody in trying to understand whether there's I think the real key here is a concept called additionality, right? And what our intent is with all of the energy programs is to move us along a continuum where that additionality factor continues to go up. And I'm going to tell you that the sort of plain vanilla recs are not the highest level of additionality, but it's still, as Rich explained, you're adding pressure to the market to deliver green energy onto the grid. It's real. It's green energy going onto the grid. But what we want to do going forward, and what we are doing, is starting to work with many developers on trying to put together community solar programs where we're going to have opportunities for people to subscribe to those, add more to the additionality. We're talking with various companies about the potential of contracting directly with generators in upstate. A lot of different opportunities come up when you get together and you start pushing on it. This is kind of the first step, but it has had a huge impact. I was on a webinar just the other day where they invited me to be on a panel, and there were 260 people who signed up. Only 200 got on. The system maxed out, but it's happening all over the state, and we are leading the way with this program. And the purchase of renewable energy through the program is the largest such purchase in New York State, and it's really having an impact.
Okay. Well, getting back to the community choice aggregation program, 3 years ago, the town of Somers, we discussed it as a board. Is this in the best interest of the town to partner up with other communities so we can get a better electric rate for our residents? Yes. The best rate we could get for our residents was a standard rate. In my mind, the best rate we can get for our residents at this point is a standard rate.
That's true.
So, that's I'm coming from that position. I respect where you're coming from, Richard, and this does not diminish your efforts or the Energy and Environment Committee, but I'm going to make a motion.
No, I think I understand what's going to happen, but I think we are the only town that won't be renewable. Not that that's always the be-all, end-all. It's
I'd be
not
proud
bad to
of it.
stand out, and you can be right. We might be, but that's the trend of everybody's going.
So I think we should, I'm
We're
going
the
to,
only towns that's not going to be it.
I think we should also vote for a resolution that we're a green town. We're pursuing everything we can locally and making investments locally to do this. I really respect what you're saying, Rich, but I'm with the supervisor. We started this 2 years ago, and we said 3 years ago, and said, look, we're going to aggregate and save money. And that was going to be handled by Sustainable Westchester.
Yeah,
And then as part of that process, you started doing some other things, which are awesome.
Right, and I don't think a standard versus renewable rate is going to reflect negatively on the town. We have 66 townhouses going in down the street using no fossil fuel to heat and cool them. It's
Geothermal.
geothermal.
Fantastic.
I mean, we're out in front. And, and I don't want to.
That's why it's a logical thing to accept.
There you go. You want it
Logical.
all.
Well, in climate change, yes.
All right, so I'm gonna make a motion that we stay with the standard rate on the contract that I signed with Westchester Power.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I'm in favor of community choice, but I'm opposed to the standard rate.
Okay.
Thank you all for the
So moved.
spirited and great discussion on the subject. I think it
Thank
was
you, Dan.
a healthy
Thanks,
thing.
Dan.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks
Yeah,
for-
and
for-
we'll see you soon at a workshop,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Thanks.
take care.
Thanks for your time.
I'm running, I gotta get the calendar.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to
Item E.
Town Board number 1, letter E. That's a DOT ELQ application for Hidden Meadows. This has to do with their water main. We finally have the paperwork all in place. And I'm going to make a motion. Let me get through that.
Authorized execution.
Authorize what?
Execution.
So I'd like to make a
Thank you,
motion to execute the application for the Hidden Meadows water main. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, and then under 3, authorize the supervisor to approve going out to RFP to install air conditioning and heating in the Reynolds House in the town of Somers, per memo from Thomas J. Tuma, building inspector, dated February 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. And just for the public edification, the Reynolds House is that house that you see on the turn going into the Angle Fly on 139. That building is being totally renovated by volunteers, and the town board did allocate about $100,000 3 or 4 years ago to that end. So
From the Parks Fund.
From Parks Fund.
Recreation, not from the budget.
Right. We authorized a $100,000 payment out of park funds for that. So you're gonna see life in that house, I would say within the next year.
Which
You
is
know-
very historic, because that building goes back to 1776.
That's right.
That's what they say. The one thing about that, I wonder if we can do something. If you look at that entrance into Angle Fly, if you come off of 139 into that entrance, there's a lot of holes. It's very craggy. I think it could be a lot better. I don't think we should pave it all the way into that back parking lot where those condos still are. But I think in the front part, if we can find a way in the spring and somewhere to make that a better entrance right there for those people who are going to use the preserve.
No, I know.
I think it could be safer,
Yeah.
and it'd certainly be more inviting.
No, the highway department has been in there dumping material from time to time on the entire road going in. But I completely agree with that entrance is getting a little hazardous. So I'll talk to Steve Ralston, our park superintendent, and Tommy Cheverini, and see if we can get that paved.
To argue about whose budget.
Yeah, exactly. All right, number 4, authorize the license application to collect refuse within the town of Somers for city carting, county waste management, Oak Ridge Hauling LLC, formerly Winter Brothers Waste Systems, Connecticut, and CRP Sanitation, per memo from Patty Calvert, town clerk, dated February 27th.
I had a question about this.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to say, I'm going to amend that authorization by removing Oak Ridge Hauling LLC, formerly Winter Brothers, pending written assurances from that company that they would that they will adhere to our local laws. They've been ticketed numerous times over the past year for starting early
Same
over in Generock. So,
Yeah.
Bill, you had?
Yeah, and on a related note, you know, I think we've done a great job, particularly the supervisor, with working with NYSEG over the last couple of years, and we've seen the improvements. Should we, and it's an open-ended question, have some sort of similar liaison relationship between the town and the various refuse collection agencies? I would ask the same question of other infrastructure, things like cable television, internet, etc. It may not be something we want to discuss and decide tonight, but just food for thought. These basic infrastructure services may need a little more oversight. Maybe they don't, but just a topic of conversation.
Well, unlike some other municipalities, some municipalities do contract with individual haulers. We're different in the sense that you need a permit to pick up refuse here, but each resident contracts on their own.
Yep.
And frankly, we dodged a huge bullet when China decided not to purchase our single-stream recycling, which added about $2.50 to all of our bills. Now, if you're a town that's contracted with a single hauler, you got probably about a 40% increase in your rates, which in some smaller towns meant them going over the tax cap.
North Salem maybe was one of them.
Yeah.
So just, so when you take this Winter Brothers out, they have to notify customers if they have customers?
No, all we're doing is pending their permit.
Right, so if
We're
we
not
don't-
telling they can't do business here yet. We're just saying, when do these expire, by the way?
It's an annual thing, it's just getting all the paperwork together, so they're operating right now technically.
So if we don't, yeah, okay, but a permit will be required for them to operate.
They need our permit for Westchester County.
So, and what I'm saying, we not only need a permit from them, I want someone of authority at Winter Brothers to tell us that they're
We
gonna.
did this 2 years ago.
Okay.
With them.
Okay.
You know, while you're on that, there's the thought that has come to mind with all these carters is that I don't know if we can do it. I think we can. But we still are using those little blue buckets for recycling, like from 2000. And I mean, people's recycle, obviously we are recycling more. People should recycle more. It's the right thing to do. But sometimes your bucket overflows and then people might put it in the garbage. So I don't know if we can require them, but we talked about this with City Carting, you and I, about them supplying a can, a larger can like you can buy in Home Depot that's specifically for recycling, has that color and the little things on it, the little symbols on it, that either they supply it to the homeowner or they supply it at a reduced cost to the homeowner with their carter's name on it, fine. I think that would make it easier for people to recycle, just as those early blue bins were designed to do that way back. I think that we've gone way past it. So I don't know if it's something we can do in the future, but I would like to do it.
I think, I'm certain City Carting, or BRIA, or whichever name they're operating under, but City Carting already has that. So if you call them up, you might just be able to get an extra barrel, an extra garbage can, an extra whatever you want to call it for recyclables only, and it is almost the size as the large garbage.
If so,
barrel.
that's great. They had told us about that guy, Mike,
Yeah.
whatever his name was.
Fiorello.
Yeah, he told us
I have
about
one.
that like 2 or 3 years ago. Said, yeah, that's a good idea. We're going to start rolling it out. And,
Yeah.
well, it didn't roll my way.
Okay.
So
Maybe
do
you gotta opt
do you have
in,
City
Rich.
Carting?
Yeah, I did.
Give them a call.
Yeah,
Let
see,
us
I will
get back to
report
us
back.
with
I will report back.
those extra barrels. All right, so I have a motion to authorize the license application for those previously mentioned refuse collectors,
Second.
pending an authorization letter from Oak Ridge. And I have a second. So move. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Okay, Chapter 67, Section 67-4, Application Processing Restrictions for 63 Route 6. That 4.21-5 is the block and lot number. Just a little explanation about this. This was a stop work order that was issued against that premise. They were doing improvements to a patio and siding. This is that little restaurant that's up in front of the crossings at Baldwin Place. So in order for them to get in front of the planning board to remediate the violation, they have to go in front of the planning board. In order for them to get in front of the planning board, the town board has to approve their application. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Request permission to purchase a Ford Transit 250 cargo van. This is per memo from Adam Smith. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution for the temporary expenditure of general funds money not exceeding $300,000 for the cost of engineering and planning, legal and other preliminary expenses for proposed future sewer districts in and for said town, subject to permissive referendum.
Second.
Is this what we talked about
This
last
is-
month? They were talking about 100 and something thousand last month.
Right, it
weren't
was
we?
100, yeah, it was 140,000.
Right. What happened?
And, well, Roland stopped us.
Right.
He said, if you want reimbursement for that, so we.
You had to go to bond council to.
Right, so we went to Doug Goodfriend, and he said, well, is there any other monies that you foresee wanting to get reimbursed for? And we said, well, yeah, what about if we added other studies in this? And so we basically came up with a arbitrary 300,000, could have been 500,000. This is just a.
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
300,000.
But it's sufficient that whatever we do, we will be able to
Right.
hopefully
Yeah, this.
get those monies
Yeah,
back.
that, we arrived at that number talking. with
Better to be a little high than low.
Woodward and Curran, yes.
Okay.
So that's the story on that one. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call vote?
Councilman William G. Faulkner.
Aye.
Councilman Richard G. Clinton.
Aye.
Councilman Anthony J. Sirico.
Aye.
Councilman Thomas A. Garrity Jr. Supervisor Rick Morrissey.
Aye. So moved. Okay, acknowledge May as National Awareness of Mental Illness Month and allow for the placement of ribbons from May 1 through May 31st, 2019.
I'm all for it, but who's the lead charity on this one? Who's kind of spearheading this one?
It's, I think it's AIM?
We can get back to that. I was just, if we knew
Huh?
offhand.
Oh, in our office, Tammy,
No, NAMNY.
NAMI,
yeah.
that's what I wanted to know. Thank you, Patty.
Well,
National
well,
Awareness
Tammy
of-
does make sure they go up and they go down, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
That's them, National Awareness of Mental Health Illness.
there you go.
Good
So that's who it is. Do we need a motion to approve that? I'll make a motion to approve acknowledgement and the placement of the
Why not?
ribbons on the trees.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Acknowledge completion and receipt of the Town Justice Court audit by our certified public accountants, O'Connor Davies, in accordance with State Section 2019-A of the Uniform Justice Court Act for the year ending December 31st, 2018.
Everything's in order.
And if I understand correctly, it
Yes,
was
it
an
was a good report.
unqualified,
It's a good report.
excellent report.
All right.
Okay, I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Budget transfers per email.
Okay, yeah. Make a motion to authorize the 2018 budget transfers and modifications per email from Robert Kehoe, Director of Finance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And Highway. Request permission to use fund balance toward the purchase of a 2018 Ram 3500 HD 4x4 dual rear wheel 60-inch cab chassis utility body with plow. for $52,331. And he's using
Cost
rollover
deferred.
money from the sales of equipment of scrap metal. And that rollover is close to $19,000 towards that 52.
Beautiful.
Is this an incremental car to his fleet?
It's in his
Well,
budget.
Is it incremental car to his fleet?
It would be in his budget.
No, it's in there. What do you mean incremental?
Well, is he retiring a car or a truck? No.
No, he says it's deferred from the sale of scrap metal.
Yeah, no, this is an addition to the fleet. Yeah,
Okay.
probably one of the vehicles they retired was, something that was used that they no longer do. So I'll make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, we have vacancies on affordable housing, partners of prevention, planning board, upcoming vacancy terms expiring in 2019 on the Parks and Rec Board. And I'd like to acknowledge the resignation of Michael J. Reid as a part-time building inspector in the building department, effective February 21st. Mike was hired as part-time. He went on to a full-time position elsewhere.
Do we have anybody in the works? For that?
Not as yet. Tommy did interview people for that position prior to, so he's going back over his list.
This guy was with us for what?
3 weeks, 2 weeks?
Lifer.
Does he get benefits?
I don't think so. No, he was part-time, so no, he did not.
I retired. I worked 2 weeks, I retired. That's all.
All right, consensus items 1 through 4. There's no discussion on those. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, our next meeting will be, the town of Somers is hosting the WMOA dinner, that's Westchester Municipal Officials. We do this every 4 years. This is a dinner meeting of this organization. We can never attend it because it's always on the second Thursday of the month. But every 4 years we do attend because we're the host.
Now, a couple years ago, I said, should we consider moving our meetings so we can go to more of these? I just wonder if we have considered that idea again, or it's just not
Yeah,
worthy.
we
On an exception basis or permanent basis?
no, yeah, on a permanent basis, because that's.
Well, I mean, they meet every month, so.
Then you gotta change all the meetings in the town, right?
Well, it wouldn't be this year, obviously, but.
Yeah, no, it would.
Yeah,
you know-
it would, yes, you'd have to reorganize everything.
Yeah,
The
we
question
do-
is, I don't know what we're missing.
It's just,
Can they change the day of their meeting?
Well, all right, if every other
Can they-
You
town
know
would
what,
like
we
to
can
agree
bring
with
that up next week.
I don't think any of them
they
meet
can
on
make it the
Thursday.
third.
Yeah, I
Thursday.
understand. What, typically, towns are having their meetings on what days? I mean, the school board's on Tuesdays.
It's Monday,
on
yeah,
Tuesday.
it's, so, we do
It's
keep
just a
it.
thought. I don't know if anybody's thought it. I've thought it.
Okay, well, I haven't thought it because I do get materials and minutes of their meetings that I'm more than happy to share, with the board. But we can have that discussion with them next week.
We could rotate one of us to go to one of the meetings and miss a meeting here.
I don't know about that. I kind of like my board intact. When we come
It's
to
only
these
twice a
sensitive
We'll
votes.
save all the good.
Contentious and-
Oh, you're trying to get rid of me? Is that what it is? Oh, I get it. Rich, why don't you go?
All in favor?
Oh,
No.
it's cold outside. It's getting colder inside.
Okay, I have, one announcement. Can't find it, but I know what it is.
By
It's
heart.
the famous recycling.
The shredder.
The shredder will be
dreaded
in Reese Park on March 29th, at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. I will be present. I will help you get your recycling or shredding out of your car so as to move the line. Come early. It fills up quickly. The line fills up quickly. We're going to handle as much as we can. we're limiting you to 4 boxes of of shredding material, and I'm sure we all have sensitive material that we'd like to get rid of. So take advantage of it. Come down on the 29th of March, which is a Friday. Reese Park over by the tennis courts. Follow the cones and be patient. We'll get everybody done.
Just
Any other comments?
I did. I went to the girls basketball final last Saturday at Pace. Very exciting. We did lose in the last minute or so. That Hannah Angelini, Tom had mentioned her last month. She put on quite a performance on with Dandy DeCintia. But the whole team, they each played a role beautifully. They all have different roles, and the good thing about a team is when people have their roles and they mesh them together, that's what creates a team and not just a collection of individuals. I thought that they did that great. The boys basketball team, of course, had a wonderful season themselves, and our track team is always unparalleled. So congratulations to all the athletes. And also last night, I did go to the library where there was a presentation by the Energy Environment Committee. Chris Zaberto was running that about Sam Miller from NYSEG was there answering questions about trees and NYSEG and answering people's questions about what should they do in case there's a tree that doesn't look good, and can you come on over here? He gave out his card with his phone number again, and also what kinds of trees should be planted and not planted around wires. Then there was a really good presentation about sustainable yard care, or using organic materials and other things that was really very informative. So it was a very nice night. The Energy Environment Committee deserves some credit on that, and Chris Zaberto, I thought, did a real good job of moderating it and welcoming people.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Very good. And one quick comment, congratulations to our Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts. The Blue and Gold Award is an annual event, and it's going on March 31st at West Point. So anytime you get a chance to go to West Point, it is an event.
True.
Yes, I plan to attend that. I'll have some certificates for the Cubs.
Excellent.
So, Richard, I think congratulations is in order for you and your team. What was your record this year?
19-4.
That's
I love
sensational.
Vikings. Yes, we were
That was excellent
successful.
coaching.
It overcame the lack of coaching, I think, would be better. But we did lose by 1 point in the county center with 4 seconds to go, so it's particularly painful. Yes. But thank you very much. It's a labor of love, no doubt, and working with high schoolers is always a lot of fun.
Yeah, coaching is a labor of love. It certainly is.
It is, but I do like it. I mean, it's been 30 something years.
So you must like it.
So a month from now, it's going to be a lot warmer.
Let's hope.
Well, daylight savings is coming up too.
That's right.
That's this weekend?
Saturday night, Sunday morning, right?
That's right.
Okay. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Good night, Somers.
Right.